Explode, Solo Doodah, No Mick Utterances, Stone Circle's peculiar mic stand, you know the score. He's here to talk about his new album, Flawed Genius, a retrospective of his finest tracks. But first, here he is live, cradling a guitar, tonsils akimbo. Julian, welcome back to the mix.
Good evening.
What's the first song called?
This one's called I've Read It in Books.
You said you couldn't find anyone to love you. I said there's more to life than a broken heart to console you. But who wants love without the looks when I've seen it in your eyes and I've read it in books? You said I tend to spend my life chasing rainbows. I said that's a cliched phrase, and anyway I like it when the rain goes. But who wants love without the looks when I've seen it in your eyes and I've read it in books? Well, I came a long way before I came across the sea. Take a week, but it won't take longer. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. Get up now.
That was Julian Cope with I've Read It in Books, which is from quite early on in your opus, I think, Julian.
Yeah, that's right at the very beginning, 1978.
Is it a strange feeling to be the kind of person who now has a retrospective album issued?
Old dude.
I was going to say rock legend, actually.
Yeah, it's, I was really not into it to start with, but now I'm into it.
Why?
Because it looked good. I thought it was going to look like an Ultravox retrospective, you know?
We should explain the pun in the title. The title is Flawed Genius, well, that's flaw as in lino, rather
That's
than
right, yeah.
fatal flaw.
With a picture of me lying on the floor.
Tell me about that.
I lie on the floor a lot, I suppose.
A recent review called The Teardrop Explodes one of the 5 greatest pop groups in history. How does that make you feel? Warm inside?
Ooh, yeah, hard and moist at the same time.
Do you feel like one of the 5 greatest pop groups in history?
Well, I've been a social pariah at times, so it feels good at the moment. Yeah, I'll grab that.
Do you think that that's the kind of judgment that people can only really make with a significant amount of time has elapsed between it actually happening and them making those kind of statements?
Yeah.
You must have been doing an awful lot of looking retrospectively recently. Things like the album, you've got the autobiography, Head On in the pipelines. Anything emerge from the overall picture?
Yeah, just how crap people thought I was at the time. Yeah, hindsight does me no good. That's what Johnny Rotten said on Metal Box, and it's true. Doesn't do me any good at all.
Why?
Well, because you always look crap at the time, but, you know, like 10 years down the line. Like, Fried never got an American release until 7 years after it came out, you know? I would rather have got the release at the time.
Does it feel gratifying, though, to be getting these kind of accolades now? Do you feel like, I told you so?
Oh, no, I never feel like that, because I couldn't have done it anyway in any case, any other way in any case, because you only do what you're capable of, really. So, maybe if I'd been capable of selling that, I would have done it.
At the time, did you feel like a misunderstood prophet?
No, because I knew that I was an asshole. So what was happening was I was trying to explain to people that it was actually okay to be an asshole. Like, I never lost that. But it's hard to explain that to people and still get them to, laud you.
I imagine that's also very hard to sustain in pop music, when the general message of pop music is, I am not an asshole, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it is, really. It's really, really difficult.
So if you're being an uncompromising iconoclast, you're not going to get an easy ride?
Not really, no. No, not at all. But that's cool as well, because it just means that you're around for a lot longer.
Uh-huh.
And I have had a career of sorts.
How do you feel when you compare yourselves to other people who kind of perhaps present themselves more as candidates for rock legendhood? I'm thinking of U2. You've been rather critical about them in some of your statements, particularly over the Dune Ray thing.
Yeah, well...
Tell me what that was about.
Well, U2 used to be just crap, but I thought they were good at what they did, and they were Christian and all this kind of stuff, and I thought that was admirable, and I thought for Christians that's great. But then they decided that they've become very greedy, and they want more than that now. They want the bad boys to like them as well, so they're hedging their bets. And that's what annoyed me. I think that if you are going to go on the Martin Luther King New Year's Day trip, you shouldn't get your dick out. I think it's really, really simple, because that's really cynical and nobody knows. I've got a friend who's a born-again Christian who used to run U2 USA, so I know what's job with U2, you know, I know and she went to see the new tour, and she said that it was terrible, because it wasn't true. And I don't mind any artist saying anything, so long as it's true what they believe. Whatever their poetic muse is, they believe it. So I don't mind listening to Satanist music if that's what they truly believe. But if they're just putting you on, you can't trust them.
I can see that authenticity is a jewel of rare price, particularly in pop music. An album like yours, like Peggy Suicide, for instance, which was highly critical of Thatcherism and all those kind of years, do you feel that the fact that you have a certain reputation, particularly in the media, for instance, as being rather esoteric, a little bit wayward, almost that you cultivate a kind of rather rather sort of left-track image. Do you think that militates against authenticity, or provides you the environment where you can be authentic, where you can make those sort of statements?
I think that it makes it more possible for me to make those statements. I think that it's okay now, but it also means that you've got to be around a lot longer before people realize that, you know, well, oh, he's not messing around anymore. The things that he's saying are ridiculous, but he obviously means them. So I think I do have to have staying power. I'm sure that a lot of art's like that, you know. Must have been really weird the first time that people saw. Imagine the first time that they hear "When the Music's Over" by the Doors. It's ridiculous. It's completely ridiculous. Rock and Roll Nigger by Patti Smith, right? I always used to think that's ridiculous. The group's all in the background, going nigger, 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 and they're getting away with it because they're singing such amazing sentiments. But at the same time, it's a very dodgy thing to be doing. That's what art is about.
There's an account I was reading recently of you doing Top of the Pops while tripping on acid. Passionate Friend, I think it was.
Yeah.
That must have been an extraordinary experience.
It was, well, you know those live Top of the Pops is where you mime in, but it's live.
Uh-huh.
It was one of those, and I thought that I was in Bucks Fizz, because Bucks Fizz were on the other side. So that was really difficult.
I think Top of the Pops really don't need acid to do Top of the Pops, because it's like a fairly ghastly trip anyway.
I know, but you don't know that until you arrive like that.
How did it actually appear, the performance? Have you seen it since?
Yes. The problem was that Passionate Friend, the song that we did, had a false ending and starts all over again. Goes, the friend I have is a passionate friend, but I can't see it, and comes in again. So when it got to that bit, I thought, oh, right, the first bit was just a run-through. This is the start. So I just started off all over again, and as far as I was concerned, but it's okay, they faded me out. I think that I was quite professional, actually.
You ended up standing on top of the piano, I recall.
2 minutes before we went on, my A&R man said, yeah, well, Dad, don't mess around on that piano, because it's costing us a lot to get it from Peter Weber's, right? And I was looking down, and it was like being in treacle toffee, liquefied treacle toffee. That wasn't what I was really worried about at that time.
You've been travelling the nation recently, looking at stone circles and things. What's the attraction there? If I could just actually be brief on this, we can come back and talk about it later, but this is rather interesting.
Well, I've decided that everybody is being turfed out of their home, be it their real home, their psychic home. Their habitat is being attacked by the businesses and the corporations. Ancient Britain is an amazing place, and we all think we live in a horrible place. Sometimes you just want to get away, and I'm doing a book about it.
This is very interesting. We can talk about this in a minute. I'm afraid we're out of time for this moment, Julian. Thanks very much. We'll be hearing more from you later.
Okay.
This is The Mix on Radio5, who joins us in the studio. You're poised and tuned up, Julian.
Yeah.
Have you any comments to make upon these two?
I actually quite enjoyed this. I think that it's good.
Do you?
Yeah, it's so nice to have journalists who have more than one dimension.
You're a wonderful man, Julian.
No, it's true.
And the
it's
checks
true.
in the pot.
You do us a disservice. We'll be sacked.
Andrew Collins and Stuart McConey, the journalists with 1.5 dimensions. Julian, you're about to play. What's this song called?
Julian H Cope. Oh. Some people waste their lives in a questionable bag. Some people judge their lives on a questionable shag. The money's on a winner, yeah, the single most cataclysmic intrusion of the Holy Ghost. When will I get what I get to keep? Keep sweeping, sister, go back to sleep. Sleeping in the doorway of Daddy-O's house. Yeah, shivering, as quiet as a mouse. As quiet as a mouse. She walks up to me, makes the sign of the cross. She says, Julian H Cope, you're a real dead loss. Slaver and hollering dog. Woke up in the fireplace, slept like a log. Keep sweeping, sister, till the brush comes apart. But just remember, women are supposed to fast. Who's wearing badges, yeah, who's making love? Who is receiving from up above? Speaking in a whisper, yeah, speaking in tongues. Speaking of the devil, yeah, here he comes. Badges? Badges? We don't need no stinking badges. Sissified to civilized, I want to be a savage. I want to be the righteousest son of man. You know I want to be the pauper of the whole darn clan. Walks up to me, makes the sign of the cross. She says, Julian H. Cope, you're a real dead loss. A real dead loss. A real dead loss. You're a real dead loss. You're a real dead loss. Yeah.
That was Julian Cope with Julian H. Cope, who we'll be hearing more from Julian in part 2. Onwards, over music coming up, I think, Julian. Anything special?
No. Just an old one with 3 chords that's really easy to play and doesn't need a plectrum.
What's it called?
It's called When I Walk Through the Land of Fear. When I walk through the land of fear, beside you, you come over here and walk with me through the land of fear. I don't look to my left, I don't look to my rear, 'cause I'm not afraid anymore. Somehow I'm not afraid anymore. 'Cause when I walk through the land of fear, there's no one there, I make damn sure. I judge the states against myself. The count has grown up above the shelf, but I'm I'm not afraid anymore. Somehow I'm not afraid anymore. 'Cause when I walk through the land of fear, they're crying and the bland sing out, abandon thee, incorrigibly tame. They'll never see beyond my game in the land of fear.
Julian Cope, live on the mix. Julian, thanks very much. We were talking circles. Tell me more about stone circles and why you go to them.
Stone circles are made by the closest distant relative that we have. They're made by man who was... He's the closest that we have. The people who built stone circles had stopped moving. They were no longer nomadic. They were now farmers. So they started to really notice the planets. They noticed they were on their way to being civilized. So what I want to know is, why did they build these temples? So the best way to do it is to visit them. There's a lot of armchair archaeologists, but you've got to go out and see these places.
You know, I was driving back from Somerset the other day, and I went across Salisbury Plain, and there in the distance was Stonehenge, but it didn't look like anything much other than a heap of stones surrounded by tourists, all fenced off by English heritage. Is it a different experience if you're up in Orkney, as I know you've just been?
Yeah.
Where you can really get to grips with these things?
Yeah, because the landscape is there. You're not tense from people trying to, push you off the land. I think Stonehenge has just become a symbol. I think the police really like people being so obsessed with Stonehenge. So I'm trying to turn people on to other places besides that.
What did you find in Orkney?
The stones are amazing in Orkney. A lot of the temples are based on the moon. There are some solar temples. There's a theory that because in 1800 BC, Venus appeared in the skies, and around that time was the main period of the stone circle builders. So when Venus appeared in the skies, it must have flipped them out completely. They must have thought, what on earth is this? So they suddenly aligned all their stone circles to Venus. So I don't know whether Venus had anything to do with other than it made a good ritual. I'm not interested in that. All I'm interested in is getting people to see these places because it chills you out.
What's the sensation when you're there? Do you get a vibe off these stone circles?
Yeah, completely.
What is it?
You walk to these places where there's a circle of stones or a chambered tomb, a burial mound or something like that. You stand there and you realize that these people built this here because they're saying, if you stand here, you're in the most amazing scenery. You're seeing what the gods wanted us to see. So the way I figure it is nothing to do with what the ancient man was believing. I'm not really even that interested in what he was believing, because I think there's a certain amount that's quite obvious. But what I want to do is I want to see it. I want to see the world as close to untainted as I can.
You're recording material for a new album at the moment called Jehovah Kill. Are you incorporating any of this material into this album? Does it have a theme like Peggy Suicide?
Yeah, Jehovah Kill is an anti-Darwinist album. It's saying that we're not anything to do with monkeys, that man is a god who's fallen, and it's basically against everything that was the age of reason. In places it's a bit wild. It's a lot looser than Peggy, so that might be a problem for some people, but I don't think it will be too much of a problem.
When will people be able to obtain Jehovah Kill?
October the 19th.
So that's on October the 19th. Flawed Genius is out now on Ireland. Julian Cope, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Richard.